Hey Joe, how
Hey,
are you doing?
Amber, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us for the hot seat today.
Glad to be here.
Just to start out, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Joe, a senior AE at UserGems from the UK. Live in Colombia. Been here for the last 5 or 6 years, and yeah, spent the last sort of 7 or 8 years working in software sales, in business development, sales management, and account executive roles.
Yeah, awesome. I know that the team, so we collected a few questions ahead of time, and then we're also asking people to leave questions in the comments that you'll answer live. I know the team has a lot of questions about you living in Colombia, so look forward to that. Um, I think that people are starting to join. So, what I'm going to do is put you solo and you'll just be up here on the screen for everyone that's listening. I'll be in the background monitoring questions, so don't ask anything too risque. And let's just get going.
Cool, let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with a question for you. And I would like to know, how did you pick Colombia as your place to live?
Yeah, just by accident, really. Was doing some traveling, wanted to learn some Spanish, and was just looking for jobs in Latin America, in different sort of tech hub cities, Medellin, Santiago, Mexico City, and found a job as an SDR here in Medellin for a Dutch company, and really liked the city. So uh, once I changed jobs, never changed location.
I'm going to check in on an audio issue real quick. It looks like someone maybe can't hear. So give me 1 second.
Yeah. You hear me, Amber?
Oh, I hear you. Okay. Audio is good. Yay.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to send you a second question. Do you have a favorite Colombian food?
Yeah, Colombia is not famous for its food. So without offending anyone, just like Britain, both UK and Colombia have a reputation for fairly bland food. But there are some good dishes for sure. Ajiaco is like a really nice soup you can get here, and I'm a big fan of their breakfasts, calentados, which is just like reheated beans and rice with some eggs and cheese. This doesn't sound like super sophisticated, but it's a nice hearty breakfast. Um, yeah, so favorite opener when cold calling. I really like of course, the gong classic, how have you been? I think that works really well. Um, Something I have got to work in the past that I haven't really tried for a while, but I'm sure it would still work again with the right pitch, is I think it's from this book, Lost Art of Closing, and it's basically sort of pitching for the meeting in the first sentence. So you keep talking until you ask for the meeting before the person responds. So it sounds, I haven't done it for a while, but yeah, it sounds something like, hey, appreciate we're expecting my call right now. The reason I was calling was to set up a quick 20-minute executive briefing, working with, other people in the space. Anyway, whatever the value prop is, do you have time tomorrow? And definitely kind of hard to deliver. But when I was doing that for a previous company, I remember a few cold calling sessions just knocking down like one, two, three, four, five, all with that opener. So I think that's a different one, and I have done it a little bit with UserGems, but not so much. So the "How have you been?" the Gone Classic is definitely a nice safe one, but sort of trying to deliver some value right off the bat and just go for a quick 15-minute meeting before they've had a chance to sort of come back is kind of interesting and does work for sure from my experience. And that book as well, Lost Art of Closing, definitely worth checking out. Um, Daily practices that made me successful as an STR. I think one, obviously, like just activity. So when I first started, was in like an SDR role where it was about sort of making 100 calls a day. So it was literally, spending all day, every day, just cold calling, no dialer or anything back then. So definitely sort of time blocking. So kind of basic stuff, but having a research block, then having an email block, then having a LinkedIn block, then having a calling block. Yeah, trying not to spend too much time on LinkedIn, go there to do what you have to do and don't sort of get sucked in, is another one. And I think as well, something that made me successful in previous roles was finding like a something like a vein of demos to sort of exploit. Like in one company, we found we could sell into this particular sort of sub vertical of our main vertical. We had a few customers. We could prepare some specific materials and then sort of run some targeted campaigns to those specific accounts. Just doing that all ourselves as SDRs, and that then became sort of a really powerful channel that produced like a lot of business for the company and a lot of meetings and meeting commission for us as SDRs. But was really, once it was set up, it was like a really easy play to execute. What types of multi-threading best practices have I found to be most successful recently? Definitely trying to bring in the relevant stakeholders from UserGems that sort of match the person I'm trying to multi-thread. So rather than me multi-threading to the CRO, CMO, getting Christian, our CEO, to do that. And that's literally just like me drafting something for him to sending over to him with their email address or sending him their LinkedIn with the connection message, whatever it is. And then doing that for other situations as well. For RevOps, bringing in our VP of Ops, Joss, for marketing VPs, bringing in our VP of Marketing. For sales, bringing in our VP of Sales. So can be sort of difficult and can rub people up the wrong way. Multi-threading without sort of when you haven't been introduced, though that's definitely necessary to get deals done. So I found, drafting things for other colleagues and getting them to reach out can be pretty effective, and tends to go down pretty well as well. Where do I see the most success in outbounding as an AE? Obviously, like, it's not the main focus, so you have to sort of focus on the things that are going to be, big deliveries of value with not too much time. So certainly and shameless plug here, but our UserGems campaign is a great source of outbounding for me as an AE now. So anything like that, looking for deals that I've closed where then people leave, looking for, I closed one account and they're in a particular vertical, just looking for 3 more accounts that look really like them and adding those people to a specific campaign. Like, hey, company A, use case. Hey, John, just started working with company A. Seems like you might have a similar use case because of X, Y, Z. So just small things like that, always having like a few new accounts coming in because either I've got like the past relationship or I've just closed an account. So we'll probably have like a more provide more value to them in the initial conversation because I can imagine what their specific situation is more like.
You're doing great, by the way.
Amber. In terms of delivering value within the first few moments, is there any way in particular that you go about doing that when cold calling? Yeah, so I guess maybe that's after sort of asking for permission, using permission-based opener. That's kind of quite a popular way to get time to either deliver value, deliver your pitch, whatever you want to do. What I found to be effective at UserGems is then to try and deliver a little bit of education before going into the pitch. So at UserGems, that would be, I'm guessing you've heard a lot of people change jobs. LinkedIn say 20% moving year on year, great resignation, lots of layoffs at the moment. So trying to educate them on sort of the market trends that are at play that are going to make the the next part of the conversation relevant. And I read somewhere once that the more general the trend is, so if it's like something about baby boomers retiring at 20,000 a day in the US, and you can make that relevant to whatever you're selling, that's much more powerful than like a niche industry trend. So yeah, for us, like Great Resignation, layoffs, more people than average changing is one of those trends that you can use to sort of get people thinking about the opportunity or the problem, whatever it is. Favorite development related book and what was the most valuable learning from the book? Don't know. I think a couple of favorites, definitely New Sales Simplified. Hard to sort of summarize my specific learning from that, but I remember when reading that, it being very helpful in like sort of coming up with like short emails, short phone scripts for executing different outbound strategies. One that I will mention though, which helped me a lot in my first role, which is probably like not a fashionable book at the moment, is Smart Calling by Art something. I can't remember the guy's surname, but it's like a pretty old school cold calling book, but has some great openers in around kind of, I don't know if they would work now. I imagine they probably still would, around like two options. Most people come to us when they're trying to do X, trying to do Y. Pretty classic stuff in there. But I found it really effective in my first SDR role, and I imagine with a few bit of updating, all of the techniques in there are still probably pretty relevant. So yeah, that's a good one, specifically around cold calling. Any deposits that are go-tos for top tier accounts? I'm not actually sure what you mean by deposits. So you mean like a value give? Would that be like, so rather than ask?
Yeah, I
Um,
have some context on this one because I recognize Will. Hey, Will. So he actually really liked your post where you had mentioned making deposits from like that are valuable to the prospect before even asking them for anything. So that's what that's referring to.
okay. Okay, cool. So I actually, yeah, cool. So I think one way I try and do this, like with everything else that's going on, is have like a Feedly account, which you can do for free. And this is from like the Jamie Shanks book, Social Selling Mastery. But it's a great little tip. So you can then have a few feeds in there. I have like RevOps, sales, marketing. You can also have keyword searches. You can have Great Resignation, things like that, and then any articles, blogs, or you can have specific blog feeds saved as well. And then it's a nice way to like once a day or every few days go through, look for some articles in there that are relevant to the accounts that you're selling to, save them. And then if you have like a little bank of templates like that updated once a quarter or every 6 months, even maybe, you can then personalize the beginning of the email, make that bit relevant. And they're the sorts of deposits I think I mean when I'm going after sort of bigger accounts, try and make it a bit more relevant. There's general market trends around why I'm reaching out to them at this time. Yeah, that's a good one. So one thing I would suggest having, which I have in our outreach, is like I think it runs for 2 years. So like a 2 year sequence of all manual tasks, between like 3 months, maybe every 1 to 3 to 4 months sometimes. So any op that was worth sort of closing that didn't close, like the key contacts go into that sequence, and then every couple of months a task comes up, and then you can just check, did last time did I ask them for something, or did I just send them something? And then whatever, do the opposite. So if you ask them where they were last time, you can just send them a value add article, something like that. And I found that to kind of be effective in bringing people back occasionally, while not sort of fixating too much on deals that have gone when there's other deals coming in that probably deserve that focus. Pre-cold call ritual. So definitely a fan of cold calling in blocks. So, at least 1 hour, ideally like 2 hours at a time. Often it's like the calls that connect in the second hour where you have the better conversations when you're warmed up for a little bit. So just pretty standard stuff, stand up, have a coffee, some healthy snacks or whatever you have to sort of get you going there. And yeah, everything switched off. So, turn off all Slack and WhatsApp and anything else you might be communicating with people on. And yeah, just sort of dive in for that particular block. And then, yeah, as I said, like usually second hour, you get the best connects. And yeah, kind of the case with most work. Like if you're working on something for a couple of hours, usually like hour two is where a lot of the good stuff happens. If I had to switch to a non-sales role, what would you choose and why? I think something I really enjoy as well as yeah, which is obviously part of the sales role is like email sequencing, subject lines, getting people to respond with like relevance rather than like personalization, seeing, what the balance is there that works best. So maybe something in email marketing, I think would also be like a good fit for me and something that I would enjoy doing. Yeah. Tips on improving the call to answer ratio. So I have tried calling twice in a row, um, leaving voicemails. Um, Probably like my favorite sales author says to leave voicemails, so makes people more familiar with you. But I don't know. I found that I haven't seen any advantage when you do connect with someone if you left them voicemails that they really know who you are. So I would have recommend texting. So rather than leaving a voicemail, just hanging up, and if they're a really valuable prospect, just sending them a quick text saying, "Hey, just tried to reach you." Something really short, something you could tweet definitely, and yeah, seeing if you can get a reply that way. And when you get people on text, then that's a really good place to be, and you can usually always have a quick back and forth with them from then on. Why do I enjoy cold calling? I think if you're yeah, one of the hardest things to do is sort of get the value of whatever you're doing, selling over, in like 30 seconds. And I think if you can continue to do that, it keeps you like fresh and crispier on other parts of your process. Cold calling, you have to like make every word count. So yeah, if you still keep up with that to some extent, it not only like obviously provides some pipeline, but um, helps you stay crispier in, delivering your value in like a concise way. Okay, thanks, Trinity. Not sure about that, but I'm happy to share some of my hacks. So, firstly, like obviously the most classic one is time blocking. So I've started now to try and have specific times in the week for following up with open ops and then for prospecting. And then obviously that means that the people that schedule in my calendar or the meetings that get scheduled there all kind of stack up in groups of like maybe 5 or 6 at a time. So I found that to be good. Just focusing on demoing or client meetings now, and then focusing on just like following up. Could be just going through Salesforce tasks, a mixture of different things. So definitely like blocking out time and then using those blocks for one specific task. For sure, automating what can be automated. So whether that's like having some like short mid-funnel sequences, if someone's interested in this part of your platform, having 3 or 4 emails that you can put them on, especially if the timeline gets kicked out for a month or so. So using some of those prospecting techniques within mid-funnel as well, definitely. And yeah, last productivity hack. Yeah, tough to say. Maybe just like focus on work at the times where you're sort of most productive. So I found that like first thing in the morning, 7 to 9 is where I'm like at my best, and afraid to say it is all downhill from there. So things that like take a bit more brain power, or things that I want to like really focus on, I know that like the best first 2 hours when I first sort of start are going to be like when I'm best at doing maybe more creative stuff. Yeah. Um, since you've mentioned it, do you have any tips on testing relevance and personalization for emails? So, I mean, I've done things, just had like 2 campaigns going to basically the same group of contacts, just split down the middle. One, fully automated, just trying to make the emails very short, very relevant. Other one, more manual touches. And my experience is that I haven't got manual touches with personalizations to do any better than relevance. But I think that's because, maybe not personalizing in the right way, or just because you personalize doesn't mean it was personalizing, in something that caught their eye. So probably just needs like more work. Yeah, certainly seems like the easier route to go, just trying to be relevant. But I have seen like things like if you make vidyards, they get watched, and then if they don't get replies, when you reach someone on the phone, you get things like, "Oh, you're the guy that made the video," or when you finally get to someone, you find out that the video got circulated, and that's why it had so many views within vidyards. So yeah, I found that things like that, even though they don't get replies, maybe similar with voicemails, they do maybe get you some mind share. Yeah, just as I mentioned just now, I think is probably how I'm trying to do it at the moment. So having specific blocks for specific activities. Also using this cool plugin for Gmail called Clockwise, which can move some of your meetings around. So you can like have a recurring meeting for prospecting on Wednesday, 2 hours, and then if other things get scheduled there, Clockwise will like move that meeting around within that day for you. So nothing kind of overlaps. So yeah, having that basically I found to be pretty effective. Best advice you'd have for brand new AEs? Yeah, probably learn how to negotiate, because that's like the thing, probably demoing, you probably know the platform quite well, whatever it is you're selling, from, setting up so many meetings, doing so many mini pitches. But then like when it comes to the tail end of the deals, like the best AEs that I've seen are the ones that are super good at negotiating. So definitely those skills for like later in the funnel, focus on, getting good at the theory there. So when you come to practice, you've got some things to try out basically, and always play to your strengths as well. So for sure, like I wouldn't say I'm the best negotiator, but I'm maybe better at the top of funnel stuff. So try and just add a few more deals of my own each quarter. So then I've got more to work with, for example. But yeah, if you're like a better copywriter, focusing on writing convincing emails to your mid-funnel prospects. If you're good on the phone, getting them on the phone. So yeah, just being reflective and knowing sort of what works well for you.
I'm going to chime in here and say that you have 5 minutes left. So we actually have a lot of questions. So you want to do it like a lightning round? You feel ready for that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry,
It's
my girlfriend's apartment phone is just ringing here as well.
not used to hearing an actual phone.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully it will stop. She's taking a nap, so okay. Let's just do the lightning round. Let's go.
Let's just do it.
Ready? proudest accomplishment recently, definitely running a marathon. Did my first marathon last Sunday here in Colombia, and yeah, 4 hours 22. So kind of an average time, but it was definitely just about getting it done this first time. So yeah, still feeling pleased with myself for that. Favorite way to relax is probably to go hiking, be outside, go camping. So try to like once a month, if possible. Spend the weekend away somewhere. Pretty relaxed. And also, I live outside in the countryside now as well. So yeah, having those sort of quiet spaces to unwind, especially like doing a sales role, for sure important. Um, yeah, I guess what I found like prospecting. So I guess with if you're texting in early stage prospecting, the goal would just be to like, as with any sort of channel, get them into a meeting or get a referral if they say they're not the right person. Maybe it's just text is the right channel for them. And then later on as well, if you're sort of still trying to build. Maybe you have to take it a bit further to hand over to your AE, for example. You can definitely use texting to like ask people specifically after a meeting, how that meeting was, and get some inside information that you can use to help set up the demo or the next stage or whatever it is. Um, yeah, so I would say something that I think you can kind of do in the BDR role a little bit is almost start to do mini demos at some point. So obviously, like not like sort of blur the lines between the roles within your organization, but being comfortable sort of answering a few more questions and keeping people on those initial calls a little bit longer, and just getting like maybe a bit more information than you're required to do. Is going to set you up really well and also help you stand out as well. And then also preparing notes in ways that are sort of summarizing where you think the solution you're selling can help them, and adding some sort of pointers for the AE and like where they think they should take the call. Yeah, anything like that, sort of putting yourself in the AE shoes will help. And something else I found really useful was like watching gong calls and then pausing when the person has asked a question, seeing how I would answer it, then seeing how the AE answered it, and then sort of comparing answers. Maybe that brings up some questions. So doing that for discovery calls and for demos, I found to be pretty effective. Quality versus quantity versus both. How much of each? Yeah, I would say quality is most important. That doesn't necessarily mean personalization. Maybe it just means you can like really nail your value within like one or two sentences, which is like almost, well, debatably more valuable than the good personalization. So definitely quality over quantity, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend a lot of time personalizing necessarily. What I found to be kind of effective as well is like personalizing sequences by roles. Like UserGems obviously do that a lot. So just having like different multi-thread sequences for RevOps versus marketing and things like that. So you can have higher quality, more relevant content, but still not compromise on getting emails out the door and making sure you're staying top of mind.
I'm going to do one final question for you.
Yeah, I guess something else that's always super helpful is anything that maybe you didn't get from the discovery call, but that is, reason maybe you're prospecting the account, or a reason the account is particularly relevant if you share investors with your company, or if you know that like you have a few other customers with the same investors as this prospect or with past employees, anything like that. So yeah, those sort of extra steps for setting up, for setting up the AE for success on the call, I think are really valuable. And yeah, also potentially multi-threading other people onto initial calls can be really effective and helpful as well. So if you set up a demo with a director and then you go like the extra mile and bring in like a VP, or maybe you set up with a manager, but ideally it's director or VP, so you get the extra people on the call, then that's obviously going to help to accelerate that deal. Went pretty quickly. I can't hear you actually, Amber. I don't know if anyone else can.
Geez, that's so embarrassing. So, is this harder than a marathon, or is the marathon harder?
Marathon's harder. Yeah.
Okay. You did a great job. Do you have any like final things that you want to say before we sign off?
No, I think yeah, just like a lot. It sounded like there are a bunch of SDRs on here looking to sort of move into the AE role. So definitely, like when you do get that promotion, make sure you keep SDRing, keep building your own pipeline as well, especially at the beginning. It'll set you up for success and help you stay sharp. And yeah, like a good skill to never lose, basically.
Awesome. So anyone who is watching, if you haven't followed UserGems already, do it, because we're going to have a lot more AMAs coming down the line. And then you should also follow Joe. It's Joe Jarvie on LinkedIn. So thanks for being here, Joe. And then I'm going to let you have the rest of your Friday.
Cool. Happy to connect and answer any other questions over LinkedIn as well. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Bye, all.